For all of you overcomers out there, this one's for you. My next guest suffered horrific child abuse, which resulted in anxiety, depression, and panic attacks. But Walt McKinley overcame and wrote this book, Monsters in My House, in order to help others. And man, has he done that. Walt joins us right now with tips for overcoming trauma, pain, and for living an extraordinary life. Walt, what a pleasure to have you on the show today. An honor for me. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, so Walt, your tips, I love that your advice here is that these are for living an extended life. You say this extraordinary life can be lived by all, no matter what you've gone through. And how did you finally come to that conclusion after your tough background?
Well, I realized even after all the abuse that I suffered at the hands of every adult I knew until I was 16, that if I was going to stop the generational cycle, which happens 78% of the time, it really started from within. And it started with a choice to work through the trauma that was weighing me down in my life and figure out a way to let it empower me and use it as rocket fuel for everything that I had ahead.
Wow. Okay, well, here's the first ingredient in your rocket fuel. Speak your truth. What does that mean exactly? That's kind of a little new agey kind of thing we say now. Oh, this is my truth. What do you mean by it?
Speaking your truth is really just saying out loud what happened to you. There's so many different things they teach you in therapy, writing it down or putting it in a balloon, letting it fly away. But there's nothing more cathartic than speaking your truth than the things that have happened to you for the first time. It's like drowning your whole life and coming up for your first breath of air. And it really is a saving grace in somebody's life.
Who do you think we should talk to? Do we need to shout this from the street corners, or who should we speak our truth to?
Well, I wrote the book just to give a voice to the voiceless. So you don't have to be grandiose and write a book like I do, but it's really finding a trusted confidant, a counselor, a therapist, a coach, just somebody that you can talk to. If you don't have anybody, contact me. You can talk to me about it and just talk out loud those things that have happened to you that you've been keeping locked away that continue to perpetuate shame internally, and say those things out loud so that they don't have the same type of control over you anymore.
The next step you say is acceptance and acknowledgement. They're not the same, are they, those two?
They're not. So acceptance is really just accepting the trauma that you've been through for what it was. It's black and it's white. And the reality is all of us have a story. All of us have been through traumatic experiences. And the second piece of that is acknowledging the emotions that come with it. That was a lot more difficult for me, was to mourn for that little boy who was hurt and abused his whole life, and realize as a man, now it was my choice to take that power and control back. But I had to work through the emotions and acknowledge how I really felt inside in order to move forward.
This next one, Walt, I think is probably the toughest to understand and implement, and that's forgiveness. Forgiveness. What do you mean exactly by that?
That was by far the hardest one for me. And so it took me a long time to forgive my abusers. I realized that hurt people hurt people. As I said before, 78% of the time, abuse is generational. And I realized those people who hurt me had been hurt so bad as children and never dealt with the trauma. So it gave me some empathy for them. It did make it okay. But I realized for me, I needed to let go of the pain and the anger and resentment and shame I felt. And in order to do that, I had to really forgive them so that I can move forward.
Yeah.
And I think the second piece of that is also making sure that as you've went through trauma, as you process that, you might lash out at somebody else. You also have to be able to give grace and forgiveness for yourself as you learn to grow and heal from that trauma too.
And then the other upside of all of this is that you grow a superpower from going through extreme pain. Isn't that true about trauma?
It really is. And I have to tell you, Paula, this is amazing. The people I know that have been through trauma and have actually healed from it or are healing are the most empathetic, compassionate, grit-filled, initiative-filled, hardest-working people I've ever met, because their perspective is so profound based upon what they've been through. So once you move through that healing pieces of those and you give that forgiveness, those superpowers that you get really do allow you to live a different life, and not only empower you, but it allows you to empower other people with your story like I have.
Wow. Well, #warrior. We're going to let you go now, and we're going to let everyone know about your book, your motivational speaking. If you go to waltmckinley.com, you can find out more about Walt's book, Monsters in My House, and more of this wisdom from a man who's been there and come out on the other side. So, Walt, we sure appreciate you, and it was such an honor to talk with you today. Thank you for sharing.
It was a blessing to be on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Walt.